I'm going to go ahead and dive in. I'm super excited to be here, you guys. It's an honor to be talking to you. I know we only have 30-ish minutes, so I don't want to waste any time, and I want to have some time for questions at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in. Don't want to bore you guys too much on me, but I did want to say a couple of things before really getting to the meat of this presentation. And yes, I will be using food puns the entire time. So I feel it's really fun to be here because I do feel reunited with the cast iron team. I worked with them in super early stages. I think my main project with them was actually choosing the name of the company. So it was way early stages, and it's really fun to be here and see how much they've grown since, and it makes it all the more fun for me to be here. Really quickly, how I kind of got into copywriting, started my copywriting career at a tech startup that really had no brand at all. They were a rapid growth startup that knew their product worked, but they didn't have any consistent messaging to kind of go with it. So when I started to dip my toe into that brand and marketing pool, like straight out of college, I really quickly gained a liking for how useful and strategic words could be from a brand lens, like choosing how to position ourselves on our website, social media, blogs, any other platform that our brand lived on. And I kind of saw that all string together into this really beautiful brand. So that's how I got into it and really fell in love with it. In 2020, I like to say traded hot dogs for shrimp cocktail, moved from Chicago to Indianapolis. If no one's experienced the St. Elmo's shrimp cocktail, put it on your list, guys. It's a must. And my first freelance project was actually an almond butter brand here in Indy. Super small brand, and was trying to get into tons of retailers very quickly, and was needing that digital presence to be consistent. So I started writing emails for them, and then it kind of spiraled into working with tons of other consumer packaged good brands in the food and beverage space. And that's what I'm still doing now. And the very last thing I'll say before we dive in is I think it's important to say that I'm no chef. I'm no creative culinary mastermind in the kitchen, despite the efforts of my Italian mother and grandmother. It's not something that comes easy to me. It's not something I particularly enjoy most of the time. But when I put my mind to it, follow a recipe, use tips and tricks from my mom and all the Instagram chefs out there, probably some of you, I can whip up a meal that is not half bad. So the point here is that you can do the same with copywriting. Maybe it's not your jam, but it has to be done for the business. So I think a few of the tips and frameworks that we're going to talk about today will kind of empower you to create some really badass copy for your digital presence. So that is my hope for you today. So I wanted to start by answering a very basic question of what is copywriting. Saying you're a copywriter to relatives at holidays or family parties usually ends in an explanation. Because unless you're in marketing or advertising, you probably haven't worked with one before, or even like gotten familiar with that phrase or the word. So this is probably a varying definition, but what I like to say when someone says, what is copywriting? Simply put, is copywriting is words used to influence, whether that's influencing someone to buy or even influencing someone to have a positive affinity for your brand or your product. Whether you want someone to see your Instagram ad and buy now, or you want someone to buy into your brand and purchase 3 months later, copywriting is essentially words used to influence. So that's how I like to explain it. And where you're seeing this when it comes to a brand lens, it's really anywhere a brand shows up digitally or non-digitally. So advertisements, this could be billboards on your packaging, blogs, brochures, social media, literally just about anywhere. And today, if we focus on everything, we'd be here till next week. But today we're going to focus on social media, definitely website copy, but more specifically headline copy, because I think that's some low-hanging fruit we can kind of attack right away, and product descriptions, which I know is important for you all, especially anyone who's already a cast iron customer, because that's where you promote your products and you get to brag about them. Those product descriptions should be so sharp. So one other thing before really getting into the meat is I want to say that copywriting is not just writing. A lot of people say that it's like storytelling. Like, think about how often you buy a product because of the story behind it. So that could be a brand like Patagonia with a lot of social responsibility behind it, or it could be the local 15-year-old in your neighborhood who just started making her own brownies or popcorn and is selling it door to door. Those stories are most powerful when they're told with the right copy. Copywriting is so much research, so much research. It's images and graphics because sometimes most times, copy goes hand in hand with those and it doesn't really work without them. Copy is rewriting and editing, so much of that. And it's applied psychology, really is. Like we said, it's words used to influence. So you're not going to put so much time and effort into crafting these phrases and sentences and taglines without the purpose of gaining new customers or letting someone know what your business is really about. So putting words on paper, no time at all. But the prep is what's big. So I just answered this little surprise question here. And I know it's technically rhetorical because I can't see any of you and you can't really answer it. But which part of making your masterpiece in the kitchen takes the longest? And I don't know if I can see something in the chat here. Maybe I don't know if anyone wants to drop it in, but regardless, it's rhetorical. So what I've learned from my mother and my grandmother, these Italian matriarchies, is that prep takes the absolute longest. The chopping, the dough, fermentation for your kombucha, whatever you're making, the list goes on. Of course, it depends what the final product is, but once the prep is done, maybe you're only looking at assembly or execution or cook time. It's the same with copy. Words on paper won't take long, but there has to be prep if it's going to be any good. So like the slide we just went over, copy is research, psychology, storytelling, and all of these things definitely do not come without the prep. So now we're getting into it. Copywriting in the kitchen. And I kind of heard at the end of what Ainsley said, super hyper-focused on brand. And this might be slightly overlapping, but it's just stress that it's all the more important. And I can't think of a stronger tie to copywriting. So we're going to do a quick little brand refresh. And there's going to be some framework that you guys can kind of take after today and really hone in on yourself. So we're going to be talking about brand identity. And brand identity is how your business effectively communicates who you are, what you stand for, and why you do what you do. So owning your identity is what best connects you to your audience and vice versa. So before we kind of get into those like quick tips for copy on your website and social media and everything else, I wanted to hit on this and I'll explain why. And also caveat here, we could spend all day on this and tomorrow and the next day, but we only have so much time. So this is just a sliver, but I think it's super important when talking about copy. So here's your new friend, brand communication formula. A huge branch of brand identity is your brand comms. Some of you might be like, wait, thought we were talking about words here, thought we were talking about writing. And the truth is we are. This is a huge part of the prep that we talked about and will 100% make your brand copy not only easier, but better and more effective, stronger tied to your brand. So this is where you're deciding, this formula that you're seeing, this is where you're deciding what's most important to say about your business and how to say it. So think of this as your brand brought to life via words. So when you have writer's block, when you are writing a company bio, when you wake up and ask yourself, why did I start this business again? This is where you come. So when you put time and effort into this, it informs your copy everywhere else and keeps you super consistent across platforms. So you can keep showing up as the brand you intended. So I know a blank brand comms formula can be very intimidating to look at. So we are going to, I want to share an example from a brand that I've worked on in the past in the food space. Can't share the brand name, which kind of goes to show you too, this is like your brand vault. Some of it's internal, some of it's external, but this is kind of your brand vault. So we'll just call them Client X for today. And for context, this brand sells sauces, condiments, and like seasonings for cooking in the kitchen or anywhere, I guess. So let's start up top with the engine, the why. Bring flavor and fun to home cooking. Simple, correct? There's no question what they're bringing to the table, quite literally. Your brand promise, the emotional tie, also internal. Banish boredom from the kitchen. Tagline, this is where it gets fun, and external. Explore where cooking can take you. Usually, this is going to be what you put in your Instagram bio when you have minimal characters to say who you are and what you're there for. Maybe this goes on your cast iron profile for those of you who are customers. Maybe this goes on your packaging. Maybe this is your website header. Really, wherever you want this to be the minimal space where you can get as much of your brand feel in as quickly as possible. The supporting messages are these 4 boxes below. Think of these as value props. So these are usually the intangibles of your business that consumers receive when buying your product. So for client X, and I know I'm going through this kind of quickly because we don't have a ton of time, but when you guys go back and watch this recording, you'll be able to kind of read more about all the copy that's in there because it really explains it and fleshes it out to the fullest. So this first one here is it's chef crafted flavors, and it goes into more talking about that, but the whole point of that value prop is credibility. The person that founded this is a somewhat famous chef. It's been on one of the Iron Chef or Top Chef shows. So one of their value props is definitely bringing credibility and experience to the table. The second one is an adventure in every bite. So you'll see it ties closely to the tagline and highlights the brand's hunger for adventure and appreciation of flavor. The third one is complex, globally inspired flavors. This is getting ingredient focused. So there's no rules with the supporting messages. You can talk about the heart of your brand, why you started it, or you can be talking about specific things you put into your product to make it a differentiator. That's what this third one is. It's ingredient focused. They're carefully sourced so you, the customers, can recreate it. And then the last one is feed your imagination. So they inspire and support culinary creativity. So I know that was a lot, but you'll be able to review after. But something I should add here that should be comforting to you is surely at one point or another, you've thought about these things. No one's deciding what these things are about your business except for you. This formula is really just used to organize those thoughts and having something concrete to continually come back to keep your brand voice consistent. The last thing on brand identity and comms before we move on is this brand pinwheel. So this might look familiar. This is definitely not my own tool. I did not create this. If you type this into Google, there's tons of different versions. Some even have like brand logos as examples instead of these bright colors. So you can see where certain brands fall, kind of helps you position a brand that you might feel is similar to yours, or the inspiration behind it is similar to yours. And this would be big brands like Coca-Cola or Apple, or like I said, Patagonia. So it kind of just helps you place your brand on this like personality wheel. And also this is definitely not only for food businesses. This is for any company looking for their brand role. So you might already know where you fall, or maybe you fall into 2 buckets, or you have a sub bucket. But regardless, identifying your brand personality is a great place to start before doing your brand comms formula. Kind of just gets you in the right mindset of how you want to show up to your consumers and what your role is in their lives, which I think I heard Ainsley touching on as well. You want to be that trusted, consistent brand, and that comes with the personality. Like you don't want to come to Christmas and Thanksgiving as different people. Your fan would be confused. So you don't want to do that here. So start here to kind of lock in your personality voice and then expand it with all your brand and product specifics on that brand comms formula. Okay, getting into the quick tips, which I'm excited for this because when Emily was kind of briefing me on what to say, I want you guys to be able to walk away from this, and maybe after you put some time into that brand comms formula, you'll be able to take these tips and apply them tomorrow, next week, soon. So closing out brand identity, touching on a few more turnkey tips that you can more immediately apply. And I want to start with headline tips, which I really wrote, like I said earlier, thinking of website headlines, but these can really be used anywhere you need a one-liner about your business. So according to HubSpot, which I need to do some research of my own before I made this slide, 55% of your visitors spend less than 15 seconds on your website. And to be totally honest with you guys, I thought it was going to be way less, because I think I've seen when someone sees maybe your ad on Facebook or something, they get like 3 to 4 seconds. So I thought it was going to be way less, but regardless, you have 15 seconds to let someone know who the heck you are, what you're selling, and why they should stay, why they should care. So a few quick tips here. There's a bazillion, but these are a few that I like to use that are kind of the low-hanging fruit. The first one is time to rhyme. This one's fun, and don't force it if it's not there. But if you have the opportunity to rhyme, take it. So this could be with your company name. It could be with your tagline, something about your product, an ingredient, a feeling that you've heard consumers in their feedback back to you, a feeling that they tell you they get when they consume or, experience your products. Rhyming helps your copy to sing, which is something that is kind of in the copywriting community. Getting your copy to sing is a phrase. It's a goal that's very hard to achieve. Even for me, I know I've been copywriting for a few years, but it's hard to always reread your copy and say that sings. Someone's going to read that and say, I'm gonna stick around because that's good stuff. And it's all the more memorable and persuasive when it has that sing to it. And copy can absolutely sing without rhyming, but rhyming might be a fun, easy way to get to it, to kind of get those creative juices going, and to get something down on paper where you say, that's clever, that's good, I like how that sounds, and it represents my business. The second one is so challenging, especially for someone like me who can just ramble forever, is brevity is best. Be brief. And if we're talking about website copy, websites should mostly be visual anyway, which I feel like should be not easy, but very attainable for food creators like you guys. Your content is probably beautiful. And so websites should be mostly visual heavy anyways, and use your words to complement those images and those graphics, and try and be as brief as you can. Number 3 here is rely on your subheader. So your website header should be followed by a subheader. Use this extra space to your advantage and rely on it when you can't say it in the header, which is should be a sub bullet of be brief. You want to say everything you can with that bold text to get someone to know immediately who you are when they visit your website. Not going to look great visually, and it's just a lot going on. Try to really hone in with what you want to share, the most important thing about your business, and use that in your headline, and then you'll be able to expand in your subheadline. This next tip is a little exercise. If it was more of like a breakout session type event, I'd be like, go take 10 minutes and do this, because anyone can. So this is called the so you can tip. This is a really easy way to highlight a key benefit of your product while clearly stating what it is you do, literally. And hint here, for whatever comes after the so you can part, you can pull those from your supporting messages, those 4 boxes on the brand comms framework that we just kind of went over. Pull those from your supporting messages and see how easy it flushes out. I swear you'll be having singing copy in no time. So here we have some examples. We brew only the finest kombucha so you can blank. That's kind of your template. We make great cakes so you can make every celebration sweet. We use the highest quality ingredients so you can indulge without consequence. So again, these are really easy tips just to highlight some things that you know for certain you bring to your consumers, or a consumer has come back to you and said, that gave me back so much time. I could enjoy my party because you catered freaking awesome cookies. And that, to me, that brought XYZ. Build those out in your so you can statements and put those everywhere. It's very easy for people to see what you do and what they can get from it. And similar to our headline tips, these can be peppered in anywhere. So social captions, emails, your cast iron about page, and also fantastic for product descriptions, which we're jumping into next. So something key to remember with your copy when you're trying to kind of get it going, other than exactly what you make, exactly what you sell. Your product is not simply your product. It's what it does for the buyer. It's the intangibles that it delivers. However, you can sell your product without pushing your product, because the fact is people are initially going to buy for the product, and they'll come back and buy again and again for all those intangibles that it delivers, all of the things that are the second half of the so you can statements. So with the product description, and we have some examples after this, because I know this is also kind of one of those things where it's helpful to see a bunch of examples within the food space to kind of get your mind in the right space. So with your product descriptions, be sure to include what it actually is. Is it gluten-free bread, classic sugar cookies, custom charcuterie board, and all the details that may come with it. I feel like people sometimes often forget to say just what you're selling, what it is. Say that intangible. So that might be from customer reviews. It might be time saver. It might be, if you are selling those vegan or GF products, it's indulgence without consequence, or it's attainable indulgence that might be hard for people that are dietary, restrictive. And then lastly, you want to include how to apply it, when to use it, how to eat it, to suggest to the consumer when they should use it in their life. So I did some screen grabs for some examples from a really fun brand called Belgian Boys. And I want to highlight in those product descriptions how they kind of creatively bake in all of these bullets that I just mentioned. So here we got some toast tongs, not a kitchen necessity, but a nice to have, and they're cute and functional. So I'm just going to go ahead and read this here. Nothing gets us more excited than a pop of the toaster telling us our perfectly toasted French toast is ready. They just said when to use it. And even if it's obvious, it just kind of for the consumer, it puts it in their life in some way, shape, or form. Maybe they had toast that morning and they're like, I could use that. So always say when to use it, even if it's obvious. And of course, maybe for you guys, it's more when to eat it, but always expand on that. Before we burn the tips of our fingers out of excitement, these tongs are not only toast savers, but morning makers. There, they just mentioned the intangible problem that it solves, safety, and to avoid burning yourself, of course. Use these tongs to fetch whatever goodness you're cooking up from the toaster so you can enjoy now instead of later. Another when to use statement. Second example, French toast purse, because who doesn't need one of those? So wake up any outfit with our limited edition French toast purse. I skipped down a few lines. Wake up with any outfit with our limited edition French toast purse so you can carry breakfast with you all throughout the day. There's their how to use statement. With a soft exterior, gold chain, and custom Belgian Boys zipper, this handbag will have heads turning and mouths watering. They just describe the product, helping someone envision it, or in your case, taste it before they buy. So again, there's a bazillion of these, especially for Belgian Boys, if you guys are liking this kind of tone. And I know it's not exactly food, but it is food related. They are a frozen breakfast brand. Just some fun and easy tips here for engaging product descriptions that are also effective. And I think these are all on belgianboys.com. So feel free to go explore more, or look at some of your favorite brands that you already like their personality, you like their tone and voice, you know that they have a huge following. Go look at their product descriptions and see what inspiration you can pull from those. Okay, I think this is already might be our last section. So social media captions, and I think you guys already heard some social media great tips in a presentation earlier this morning. So I kept it really brief here, but there's some really fun examples that will just kind of, again, get those creative juices flowing so you can feel really good about the captions that you're writing. So some really quick social caption tips here. We'll start with relevance. More sophisticated word, that's more through a social media lens. It's just a more sophisticated word for saying what's trendy. So a lot of the time, Instagram gives us the material, and it's our job to be able to hop on a trend and relate it to our product or our brand. So staying relevant is key, not only to increase your engagement, but also to connect with the customer. And I have some examples on the next slide for this. And I'll always tie it back to your brand or product, but keep in mind, you don't always have to do the hard sell on social. Think of your social as your brand magazine, and you can kind of push the hard sell stuff at places like your cast iron profile, or like those product descriptions. This is where you can do the hard sell. And then here we go with that word again, brevity. Brief copywriting is hard. And especially on social, it's way less than 15 seconds before someone continues to do the doom scroll. So there's also a book that's very popular in the copywriting community called Smart Brevity. That's all about saying more with less. And it's not just for copywriting, it's for business in general. If anyone's kind of a big audiobooker like myself, it's just a good business book. And it's really about being confident in what you're saying with little words. So again, on social, this is key. There's no room for a blog. There's no really room for a big summary synopsis of whatever you're trying to say. So really keep it brief here. Saying what you want to say with minimal characters is a challenge. And another example of this on social is like your Instagram bio. You want someone to kind of go to your page and say exactly what you do, but there's not a ton of room to say that. You want some fun emojis. You might want to do the your own personal handle as a founder. There's a lot to put in there. So it's definitely a challenge, but it shows that you're confident in what you're saying, and it allows your followers or potential customers to kind of catch your drift more efficiently and quickly. So another place to be brief here. Another fun brand example to kind of wrap us up. So Nadamu is an organic dairy-free ice cream brand that I've seen highlighted a few times for their clever captioning. So a few fun captions here. We'll start at the bottom. Don't let the fear of melted Nadamu stop you from ordering your favorite frozen treats. Babe Ruth most definitely said that. And if anyone's a fellow millennial and watched Hilary Duff in Cinderella Story growing up, then you know that that's what I know the quote from. But it was most definitely a Babe Ruth quote, and they're doing a fantastic job of pulling a very popular quote and relating it to ice cream. And then I saw someone do a little LOL face in the captions. And then up on the up right-hand side, so fresh and so creme, lots of crumbled cookies turned into our creamy, super smooth ice cream base. What's better than that? That is an Outcast 2000 lyric, and it's awesome. So the point here, and I will say there's a pretty fine line here between trademark lawsuit and paying tribute to legends like these guys. So don't come after me if anyone gets a trademark lawsuit here. But the point here should comfort you, because a lot of times people think that clever copywriting needs to always come from between the ears. Sometimes it does, and other days you lean into inspiration like pop culture, new or old, to inspire your words and connect you with your audience. What does rap and baseball have to do with ice cream? Pretty much nothing. But it's a common point of knowledge that connects Nadamu with their followers. So the takeaway here is take a cliche or an everyday idiom and replace it with a word that describes your product or brand, and you will be sure to come up with something pretty fun and relatable. Maybe get a good chuckle out of your audience. So that is my last tip, you guys. I know that was kind of a quick end. Wanted to squeeze it all in. I think I'm a few minutes over. But my next slide is just open for questions, and hope you guys enjoyed that.
Yes, that was awesome, Frankie. Thank you. Mark is in the chat giving his examples of using pop culture to sell cast iron. So we've got a Bruce Springsteen quote there. So I look forward to seeing that on Mark's social later today.
I love it.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm curious where you find inspiration when you're writing for food brands. So Nadamu is a good example of one that our audience might follow to find that inspiration, but are there other places that you look?
So this might be too kind of niche to the way that I work, but everyone's a food creator here and a food entrepreneur. There's a group I use for a lot of inspiration. It's also a free Slack channel if anyone wants to join, called Startup CPG. It's all food creators, and it's all everyone just quick startups trying to launch their brand. And it's people sharing clever ideas, getting very clever with their copy. And CPG is so competitive. And I know CPG is really more focused on like retail on shelf, but it's all the same mindset, very competitive. Everyone's trying to make the next tasty big thing. And I find like sometimes like a couple of the brands I've worked with, like a Belgian Boys or like Nadamu, I go there for inspiration. But when I'm like, where else can I be looking? I don't want to look at a brand I've worked on. I want to look at something new. Startup CPG is this community of food entrepreneurs, and they're always sharing like tools, like what their tech stack is. So if you guys just need inspiration, yes, on copy for sure, and just like kind of poking around on a brand's platforms, then that's a great spot to find it, but also just a good community to tap into for business advice, things about like co-packers and manufacturers and things way out of my realm. These are just like channels I see within the Slack group. So yeah, just a really helpful resource for anyone who wants more.
Yeah, that's perfect. And we got a question. What was the book that you mentioned earlier?
So that's called Smart Brevity. I'm blanking on the name of the author, But yeah, like I said, very popular in the copywriting community because being brief is so hard, especially for a rambler like myself. So I think it's just a good business tip in general. It's about presenting and being able to succinctly say what you want to say. It goes back to the whole less is more mantra. So yeah, it's a great book.
Awesome. And last question is, when you're facing writer's block, how do you, like, if you're just like looking at this, maybe you've put together your brand comms formula and you're looking at it and you're like, it's just not happening today. I do not know how to turn this into a social media caption about my charcuterie boards or whatever. What do you do?
I was expecting this question because I feel like it's a common thing for everyone, whether you're a copywriter or not. I'm actually going to steal my answer from a quote unquote famous copywriter from the advertising industry. Her name is Kathy Heppenstall, and she's really more in like the like super Fortune 500 brands that have that memorable, Super Bowl commercial quote that we all know and remember and repeat. She said on a podcast that she doesn't like the term writer's block because a block is something that's mostly impenetrable. And she's like, it's discouraging. And if you have to be in a writing mindset, then you can't just be in this like, oh, I'm blocked, I'm going to go, I don't know, step away from my computer, which that can help too. You want to go for a walk, you want to just get away from what you're trying to write and just like focus on something else for a minute. That works. But the way that she said, I really liked it because she said, writer's block, I don't like that phrase. It's discouraging, and a rock is impenetrable, and you're going to break through whatever this blockage is that you have in your mind. So her trick, and a trick that I've kind of adopted from her, is get away from anything digital, phone, computer, get a old school pen and paper and just start writing. And this could be like going back to your brand comms formula. Just start writing about like why you started your brand, what you want people to feel or taste when they experience your product, when they're getting their hands on it, when they're taking that first bite. Write any words that come to mind, write any phrases, go back to some text that people have sent you about their experience with how great your product was, and just put it all down on paper. And I guarantee you something will start to flow. And even if it doesn't flow at that time, you're going to put something in your mind about the goal that you're trying to write. And I promise it will come to you, but writing and getting those feelings out will kind of, in a weird way, like a weird ass backwards way, will kind of help you break through that like fogginess that we all get, that I literally get like almost every day when coffee doesn't help. And I have to just close my computer and get a pen and paper and write what I'm trying to kind of get out of my head. And I promise you something will come to you.
Yes, that's good. Step away from the computer. That's a tip that I have to remind myself of and that I use all the time. So that's awesome. One final question for you, Frankie, before we head into our next break. Do you think about SEO or using any sort of keywords or anything like that for when you're writing copy?
Absolutely. SEO is big. And I kind of had it in my deck when I was kind of building it out. And I was like, I think this would take, like, SEO could be its totally own presentation. So SEO is huge, especially for website copy. Obviously, that's where people are going to find you. There's so much on SEO. I encourage people to look into it. No, I'm not an SEO pro, but when I'm doing blog writing, usually given keywords from the client to kind of bake into that blog or to bake into that product description. But yeah, I feel like that's a whole nother beast that maybe there's going to be another cast iron SEO workshop in the next quarter. But SEO is big and should definitely be baked into at least your website. But I feel like it's a whole nother beast, and I could go down a rabbit hole, and I don't want to cut into you guys' break time, because I'm sure you need a bathroom break or a snack or all the above. So I will not break into that.
Yes. And Sid is one of our cast iron coaches. She actually put together a pre-recorded session. So if you guys missed that at the beginning, check out the Camp Cast Iron registration page where you can get Sid's SEO session. And she'll touch on all of the things that we do not have time to go into right now, but it's a great session. So definitely recommend checking that out. All right. Well, Frankie, we made it. You crushed it. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. Lots of good tips that we can take away. I can't wait to check out, I should like take a screenshot of like a bunch of cast iron stores and see how they change in the next week.
Yes, absolutely. That's what I wanted for you guys. I want you to be able to take away these tips and write something awesome that you feel really good about. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was an honor. It was an absolute honor to speak. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And Frankie, do you share copywriting tips or anything anywhere? Can people find your info?
I definitely have my own note of tips, but it's not something I usually share on like LinkedIn and stuff, but I'm always kind of reposting things I like and things that I see. If you guys want to connect on LinkedIn, let's definitely chat. You can just find me at Frankie Guzek on LinkedIn. That's actually where I get a lot of my good copywriting tips too. There's so many like newsletters and pages just to follow with very easy tips, very similar to the ones that I shared. So if you guys are just kind of wanting to see it on your feed, definitely follow. There's a gazillion, but just really fun copy examples. So yeah, all on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Frankie.